The skies over Tokyo turned crimson at noon. Not the warm red of sunset, but the harsh metallic crimson of alien ships breaking through the atmosphere. Commander Diana Wright stood on the roof of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching humanity's worst nightmare unfold. The massive vessels, each the size of a small city, cast shadows that turned day into night. "Commander, Beijing has gone dark," Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported, his voice crackling through her earpiece. "London and Moscow are reporting multiple contacts. They're everywhere." Diana's fingers tightened around the railing. 20 years in the military hadn't prepared her for this moment. The aliens they'd dubbed the Nexus had appeared without warning, their ships emerging from what scientists called fold space, tears in the fabric of reality itself. "Get me General Harrison," she ordered, turning away from the apocalyptic view. The command center below was a hurricane of activity, screens lighting up with new contact reports every second. "And someone tell me why our orbital defense grid is silent." The answer came in the form of a deafening boom that shook the building. Above, one of the Nexus ships had positioned itself directly over Tokyo. A beam of intense purple energy lanced down, cutting through the city's tallest structures like they were made of paper. The screams began moments later. "All stations, this is Commander Wright. Initiate Protocol Omega. I repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect." Her voice remained steady even as she watched her city burn. Protocol Omega was the last resort, a simultaneous launch of every conventional and nuclear weapon Earth possessed. They'd hoped it would never come to this. The response was immediate. Missiles streaked upward from hidden silos across Japan, their contrails forming a web of white against the blood-red sky. For a moment, hope flared in Diana's chest. Then the impossible happened. The missiles stopped, hung suspended in mid-air like toys frozen in time. Then, one by one, they turned around and began falling back to Earth. "Get everyone underground," Diana screamed into her comm. "They're turning our weapons against us." The next hours passed in a blur of destruction. Cities fell. Armies were scattered. The Nexus moved with mechanical precision, targeting military installations and government centers first, then methodically working their way through civilian populations. They weren't just attacking, they were harvesting. Deep in the UEDF bunker, Diana watched the casualty reports climb. Billions. The number seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. The aliens had come prepared for total domination. "Commander," a young analyst named Michael Peitel approached her desk, tablet shaking in his hands. "We've decoded some of their transmissions. They're not just here to conquer us. They want to remake Earth itself, transform it into something else." Diana studied the data on his tablet. The Nexus weren't just an alien race. They were terraformers of the worst kind. They didn't adapt to planets. They forced planets to adapt to them. "What about the reports from India?" she asked, remembering the strange transmissions they'd received just before communications went dark. "The ones about the light." Michael nodded eagerly. Multiple sources confirmed it. Something happened in the Himalayas when they tried to harvest that region. Their ships, they couldn't penetrate some kind of barrier. And there were reports of a figure, something that wasn't human, but wasn't Nexus either. Diana was about to dismiss it as panic-induced hallucination when every screen in the bunker suddenly went white. A sound filled the air, not quite music, not quite thunder, and for a moment everyone stood frozen. When the screens cleared, a single message appeared, written in every human language simultaneously. "The ancient pact still holds. The Guardian comes." Diana didn't understand the message's meaning, but she felt something she hadn't felt since the invasion began. Hope. Whatever was coming, whatever this guardian was, it represented a chance. And right now, a chance was all humanity had left. As she organized what remained of Earth's forces, Diana couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The real war, the one that would determine not just humanity's fate, but perhaps the fate of reality itself, was about to begin. In the skies above a burning world, the Nexus ships continued their harvest. But something else was stirring, something older than their advanced technology, something that had waited eons for this moment. The survivors called it the Long Night, 30 days of darkness caused by the debris clouds from Earth's fallen cities. Commander Diana Wright stood in the ruins of what had once been Shanghai, watching her troops salvage what they could from the wreckage. The Nexus ships hung in the sky like metal stars, their purple harvest beams sweeping the landscape. Status report. She barked into her quantum comm, the only technology still working after the aliens had disabled Earth's conventional communications. "We've got movement in Sector 7, replied Captain Raj Kumar, his voice tight with tension. But it's different. Not Nexus. Something else. Diana had learned to trust Raj's instincts during the past month. If he said something was different, it was. She activated her tactical visor, scanning the sector. Through the enhanced vision, she could see heat signatures moving through the rubble, but one of them was wrong. It registered as absolute 0. "All units, converge on my position," she ordered, drawing her pulse rifle. The weapon was nearly useless against Nexus technology, but it was better than nothing. As she moved forward, the temperature around her plummeted. Frost formed on her armor, crackling with each step. Then she saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and otherworldly. It wore armor that seemed made of living ice, shifting and flowing like frozen mercury. Where its face should have been, there was only a swirling vortex of blue energy. In its right hand, it held a sword that hummed with power. "Hold your fire," Diana commanded as her troops arrived, their weapons trained on the entity. The figure made no aggressive moves. Instead, it raised its left hand in what appeared to be a greeting. "I am the Winter Knight," it spoke, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I have come to fulfill the ancient pact." Before Diana could respond, alarms blared. 3 Nexus harvest ships were descending, their energy weapons charging. The Winter Knight turned to face them, its sword blazing with cold fire. "Watch," it commanded. The knight raised its sword, and reality itself seemed to bend. The purple harvest beams struck an invisible barrier and shattered, turning to ice that fell from the sky like deadly rain. The knight moved with impossible speed, leaping hundreds of feet into the air. Its sword cut through the Nexus ships' supposedly impenetrable shields like they were paper. Diana and her troops watched in awe as the knight systematically dismantled the alien vessels. Where Nexus technology touched the knight's armor, it froze and crumbled. When the last ship fell, the knight returned to Earth, the ground freezing beneath its feet. "The Nexus are abominations," the knight stated. "They breach the walls between worlds, consuming what is not theirs to take. But they have never faced the Guardians before." "What are you?" Diana asked, stepping forward. "Why help us now, after so many have died?" "Because now is when we were meant to help," the knight replied. "The prophecy speaks of the time when the harvesters would come, when the worlds would bleed. We are the counterforce, the balance, but we cannot fight this war alone." Diana's tactical mind was already racing with possibilities. "You can hurt them. You can get through their shields." "Yes, but I am only one knight." There should be others, but they are missing. The Nexus did not come to your world by chance. They knew what they might awaken here. Before Diana could question further, her quantum comm erupted with urgent reports. The Nexus were launching a massive attack on the remaining human strongholds. But something was different. They were acting with desperation rather than their usual mechanical precision. They fear you, Diana realized, looking at the winter night. They're trying to complete their harvest before more like you appear. Then we must move quickly, the knight responded. Commander Wright, gather your forces. What I am about to show you will change everything you know about your world, your history, and humanity's place in the cosmic order. As they prepared to move out, Diana noticed something extraordinary. Where the winter night walked, plants began to grow from the ruined earth, not earth plants, but crystalline formations that pulsed with their own inner light. Life, but not as humanity knew it. The survivors watched in wonder, hope kindling in their hearts for the first time since the invasion began. The Nexus might have superior technology, but the winter night represented something else entirely. A power older than technology, banned by laws the aliens couldn't comprehend. Commander, Rage called out, pointing to the sky. The perpetual darkness was breaking, rays of actual sunlight piercing through the debris clouds. And in that light, Diana saw more impossible things. Shapes moving in the upper atmosphere, places where reality seemed to fold in on itself. The winter night raised its sword in salute. The barriers between worlds grow thin, it announced. The real war begins now. Diana nodded, understanding that this was a turning point. Humanity had been fighting for survival, but now they would be fighting for something more, the very nature of reality itself. And somewhere out there, other knights were awakening, other powers stirring. The Nexus had wanted Earth's resources. Instead, they had broken seals older than time, awakened guardians that should have stayed sleeping. As Diana mobilized her forces to follow the winter night, she couldn't help but smile grimly. The ancient library beneath Tibet's mountains should have been destroyed by the Nexus invasion. Instead, Commander Diana Wright found herself standing in a vast chamber that seemed to exist partially outside normal space, its crystalline walls pulsing with the same energy that powered the winter knight's armor. These archives predate human civilization, the winter knight explained, moving through shelves that contained not books, but floating orbs of light. Your ancestors called us gods, but we were guardians watching, waiting for the harvesters to return. Lieutenant Raj Kumar touched one of the orbs, and holographic images exploded around them. Scenes of an ancient war that made their current conflict look like a skirmish. Beings of pure energy battled across multiple dimensions, their weapons tearing holes in reality itself. Director Yuki Tanaka was right, Diana breathed, thinking of the UVDF's lead scientist who had theorized that the Nexus weren't just aliens, they were interdimensional parasites. They've done this before. To countless worlds, the Knight confirmed. They harvest not just resources, but reality itself. Each world they consume makes them stronger, lets them breach more dimensional barriers. A new figure stepped from the shadows, Professor Ibrahim Hassan, Earth's leading archaeologist. He had contacted Diana's forces a week ago, claiming he had found something in the library that could change everything. Now, his eyes blazed with an almost feverish light. "Commander, the prophecy isn't just about invasion," he said, gesturing to a particular orb. "It's about transformation. The Nexus aren't just here to harvest Earth. They're running from something worse." The orb activated, showing a darkness spreading between stars, devouring entire galaxies. The winter knight's armor dimmed slightly, as if in response to the ancient terror. The Void Hunters, the knight named it. Even the Nexus fear them. That's why they harvest, not just for power, but to build barriers between dimensions, trying to seal themselves away from what hunts them. Diana watched as more images played out. The Void Hunters consuming world after world, the Nexus fleeing across dimensions, and the Guardians fighting both forces, trying to maintain cosmic balance. Then why fight them? She asked. If they're trying to survive. Because their survival comes at the cost of entire realities, Professor Hassan interrupted. And Earth. Earth is special. The library speaks of a convergence point, a place where dimensional barriers are naturally thin. If the Nexus complete their harvest here, they could seal off this entire dimensional cluster, the knight finished. Trillions of beings across multiple realities would be cut off, left defenseless against the Void Hunters. A massive explosion rocked the library. Through their quantum comms, reports flooded in. The Nexus had found them. But something was wrong with the aliens' movements. They weren't attacking with their usual precision. They're desperate. Rage observed, watching tactical displays. They know we found the truth. The Winter Knight's sword materialized, its edge splitting light into prismatic patterns. There's more. The prophecy speaks of a fusion, human courage and guardian power. That's what they truly fear. Not just us, not just you, but what we could become together. Diana's mind raced. The barriers you mentioned, they're not just between dimensions, are they? They're between different types of existence, science and magic, physical and spiritual. Yes, the knight confirmed. And humanity stands at the crossroads of all of them. That's why Earth is a convergence point. Not because of its location, but because of its people. Another explosion, closer this time. Through the library's crystalline walls, they could see Nexus harvest ships descending, their purple beams trying to penetrate the ancient shields. Professor Hassan rushed to a central pedestal, where a single orb larger than the others pulsed with blinding light. The library contains more than knowledge, he said urgently. It contains power. The same power that created the Guardians. The Winter Knight moved with sudden urgency. The choice must be made now. Humanity can remain as it is and face extinction. Or we can become something more, Diana finished. She looked at her people. Raj's determined face, Hassan's scholarly intensity, the tired but resolute expressions of her troops. They had lost so much, but perhaps that loss had prepared them for this moment of transformation. The Nexus ships started breaching the outer shields. The Winter Knight raised its sword, ice spreading across the library's walls, buying them time. But even its power couldn't hold back the desperate assault forever. Diana stepped toward the central pedestal. How do we do this? Touch the orb, the knight instructed. But know this, there's no going back. Humanity will evolve, but into what? That depends on the choices you make in the next few moments. The chamber shook. Reality itself seemed to be thinning around them. And Diana Wright, commander of Earth's last organized military force, reached for the light that could either save or transform her species forever. Light exploded through the ancient library as Diana's hand touched the glowing orb. Power surged through her body, raw energy that threatened to tear her apart. Around her, her fellow humans underwent the same transformation. Raj, Hassan, and every soldier in the chamber began to glow with internal light. The Winter Knight's voice echoed in their minds. The fusion begins. You are becoming what your species was always meant to be, bridges between realities. Diana felt her consciousness expanding. She could see through dimensions now, perceive the vast web of reality that the Nexus had been desperately trying to control. The aliens weren't just harvesting worlds, they were attempting to restructure the fundamental nature of existence. But the transformation came with a price. As her awareness grew, she felt the presence of the Void Hunters at the edges of reality, vast, hungry entities that made the Nexus look benevolent in comparison. She understood now why the aliens had been so desperate. "Commander Wright," Rage called out, his voice resonating on multiple frequencies. His body shimmered with energy patterns similar to the Winter Knight's armor. "The Nexus, they're pulling back. Something's happening." Through the library's walls, they watched as the alien ships retreated from their assault, but it wasn't a victory. The sky above was turning black, not with clouds or smoke, but with nothingness. The Void Hunters had found them. "We didn't just gain power," Professor Hassan realized, ancient symbols swirling around him like a tornado of light. "We've become beacons. They can sense us now." The Winter Knight's armor pulsed with urgency. The prophecy spoke of this moment. The Nexus will try one final harvest, not to free the Void Hunters, but to stop you. If they can complete their work before your transformation is complete. A new sound filled the air, a deep, resonant tone that shook the foundations of reality. The Nexus fleet was returning, but different now. The ships were combining, merging into something massive, something that blotted out what remained of the sky. Their true form, the Knight explained. What they become when there is no other choice. Diana looked at her transformed troops, each now glowing with power they barely understood. They were caught between two impossible forces, the desperate Nexus and the hungry Void. But perhaps that's exactly where they needed to be. "Form up," she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of newfound power. "We're not running from either of them." The final battle for not just Earth, but reality itself, was about to begin. Part 5. The Final Stand. The merged Nexus entity filled the sky like a second universe, its surface writhing with purple energy. Below, Diana's transformed forces stood ready, their bodies channeling powers that bridged the gap between science and something older, something deeper. The Winter Knight stepped forward, its armor now resonating with the same frequency as the transformed humans. "You understand now. This was never about salvation or destruction. It was about evolution." Diana nodded, feeling the weight of multiple realities pressing against her consciousness. The Void Hunters forced change through consumption, the Nexus through harvesting and restructuring. But you represent true adaptation, the Knight finished. The ability to change while remaining true to your essence. The void at the edges of reality grew darker, hungrier. They were out of time. Diana raised her hand, and with it, the power of every transformed human on Earth. They had spent weeks fighting separately, but now they moved as one. A gestalt consciousness that maintained individual identity while acting in perfect concert. The Nexus entity struck first, its harvest beams, now thick pillars of reality-warping energy. But where before they had been helpless against such power, now Diana's forces shaped reality right back. Every beam was caught, redirected, transformed. "The barriers," Professor Hassan called out, his consciousness intertwined with the others while his scientific mind continued analyzing. "We need to reinforce them, not break them." Diana understood. The Nexus had been going about it wrong, trying to seal reality off completely. The Void Hunters had been equally wrong, trying to consume and combine everything. There was a third way. "Everyone together," she commanded. Not to fight, to create. The Winter Knight's power joined with theirs as they reached out, not to destroy the Nexus entity, but to change it. Their combined consciousness touched the alien hive mind, showing them what they had discovered, that reality needed both barriers and connections, structure and flow. For a moment, everything hung in balance. Then, slowly, the Nexus entity began to shift, its purpose realigning. The void at the edges of existence writhed in fury as its prey began slipping away. Now, Diana called out, complete the transformation. Every transformed human on Earth released their power simultaneously, guided by the Winter Knight's ancient knowledge and humanity's innovative spirit. Reality itself flexed, then stabilized. The void was pushed back, not sealed away but contained. The Nexus entity, no longer harvesting but participating, became part of the new structure. When it was done, Earth had changed. Humanity had changed. They were no longer simply human, but they hadn't lost their humanity either. They had become living bridges, able to maintain the delicate balance between order and chaos, science and mystery, physical and spiritual. The Winter Knight knelt before Diana, its armor now shimmering with the same merged energy that flowed through all of them. The ancient pact is fulfilled. The Guardians need no longer stand alone. Diana looked out over her transformed world. Crystalline structures rose alongside traditional buildings. People flew through the air as easily as they walked, their bodies adapting to their needs. The Nexus ships, now allies, hung in the sky like new constellations. What now? Rage asked, his consciousness still linked with hers, but distinctly his own. Diana smiled, feeling the pulse of infinite possibilities. Now we learn, we grow, we guard. She turned to the Winter Knight. And we make sure no species has to face the void alone again. Above them, reality sparkled with new potential. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved into something that could help shape the future of existence itself. Not through conquest or consumption, but through understanding and adaptation.